Well, now we're getting into some difficult sections of Genesis, especially for me to try to do in 5 minutes. So I'm going to do my best here. The second half of Genesis 18. And this passage has troubled some and encouraged others greatly because the conversation between God and Abraham that's recounted here speaks to the character and the nature of God, as well as how he wants to work with and through his people, and how God's will works and how we can work with it. Now, this passage should not be treated as the end all and be all. There's other places in Scripture that talk about these topics, but it's an important one and one that often challenges some of our expectations and some of the systems we've built. In other words, it can make us really uncomfortable at times. Now, I had said in the last devotional, there were two reasons that God had visited Abraham. The first was to reiterate the promise. The second was to tell him, Abraham that is, what he, God, was about to do in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so this passage, if you've read it already, it can bring up some questions like, did Abraham change God's mind? Could he have changed God's mind? Can God's mind be changed? What if Abraham had asked one more question and asked if there was only 5 righteous people in the city? Would God maybe not have condemned the city then? Or maybe it's a question, does God not know what's going on? Because it says that he's going to the city to see if the accounts are true. Now, some of these questions we can have are about the God-human relationship, and others are just speculation. We need to work with the text and what the text says in the context of the story so far. A couple things that are key. God wanted to reveal to Abraham what he was doing because Abraham was the key person God was looking to reveal himself to humanity through. Not the only person, but there was something specific, right? We've been starting from Genesis. Well, let's take from 3 and just the promise of God undoing the curse. And we're waiting for that person. And the promise of that person coming is going to be through the line of Abraham. And so God is looking to reveal himself more fully to Abraham and therefore also to us. Second, God is revealing himself to Abraham because Abraham here asks for increasingly less righteous people as the minimum, as the threshold, from 50 down to 10. In a city of at least 1,000 or some thousands by the best estimate of scholars. And as we are going to see in the next chapter, not even 10 were found. And so what God is showing himself here to Abraham is a God who's reluctant to condemn, a God who is also firm in addressing sin when it has gotten too far. And if humanity won't control their own sin on a societal level, we have seen already the pattern. God will intervene. But that's not God's desire because of the consequence it brings. I mean, again, think of like a cancer. Doctors want to remove it, but they'd like to remove it in as least invasive and overall destructive means as possible. But if it gets too far, there's nothing too radical to get it out because otherwise it will affect and condemn the rest of the body. God has already needed to intervene to keep the cancer of sin but from infecting the rest of humanity. And here in Sodom and Gomorrah, not even 10 people, at best, it's 0.01% of the population. Not even that was considered right in any way with God. So God knew what he was going to do. And yet he wants his people to know and to be involved. And so we can go to God in persistent prayer, asking him to act. We need to be listening. Even in our boldness, we listen for God's heart. Just some of the things to think about. And this section may stir up all sorts of questions. So again, if it has, send them in. Love to try to dialogue. Well, love to dialogue and try to bring some greater clarity together. Thought for today. When is the last conversation you've had with God? Or when is the last time you've advocated for the sake of others, even people you knew were wicked? And if it's been a while, what is God saying to you about what that shows about your heart? Interesting questions perhaps for today, and maybe some tough ones. And so, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you today. And would you know his peace? God bless.